And our first trending
So
topic,
gentle.
Justin Herbert and the Chargers rolled past the previously undefeated Raiders. What do you view as the real story leaving that game?
Okay, so the real story to me is the fact that I still think that Derek Carr wears eyeliner. I know he doesn't, but I can't watch him play without thinking that this is a little bit augmented.
How do you know he
But
doesn't?
what I will say, but there are guys like that though, and I'm not even saying this pejoratively. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you
I just
sound
feel
jealous,
like there's
actually.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Got
fair
nice
enough.
Look
eyes.
at that. Oh,
Yeah.
that is
I mean, look
Sultry.
at that.
frightening
Look
and
at
sexy at the
that.
same time. Jeez.
Now, the real story, though, might be that everybody made fun of Derek Carr for other reasons after the game. Like Joey Bosa was saying how you get pressure on this guy and he crumbles. Everyone was just taking time to
crumbles
dunk
for
on
a
this
second
dude.
half comeback and multiple touchdowns. I mean, that just didn't pan out for me.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that true of
Well,
all
there it
quarterbacks?
is.
Like, show me the quarterback that is under pressure and just shakes off Joey Bosa. Like, nah, I'm good. There's no problem here.
We hit him a bunch of times, and then he reacted as if he'd been hit a bunch of times. Shocking.
Oh, man. I mean, I think that the Raiders are not the story. Like, the story is the Chargers, even though they made a big show of
Yeah.
how few Charger fans exist and were in the stadium. The Chargers are a really, really good team in a tough division, but coming off a win against the Chiefs, and they have a quarterback who is as talented as Patrick Mahomes is. He's as talented. He's not as productive, but he's as talented, and he's young. In that
Big
defense,
arm and non-tiny brain. Yeah.
and an entirely normal-sized brain, beautiful hair, athletic,
The
strong.
hair, man. Yo, that post-game interview, Domonique, where he was giving the interview with like his bangs down, looking up
Yeah.
at the camera. I was like,
Yeah.
yo, this dude, all right.
But I mean, Derwin James, the real person I need to talk about here. The safety for the Chargers is very special. His
What did we miss,
versatility.
Dominique? Because I didn't have Derwin James on my list of things to talk about here.
So-
What did I miss?
Well,
That
game-stealing
defense-
interception.
Yeah, the game-stealing interception. He got run by Henry Ruggs, which I mean happens because Henry Ruggs runs like a 4.1. But also his versatility is something that is unique, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he makes the play all the time. But we saw it last week against the Chiefs. You can put him in man coverage against a receiver. You can also put him in man coverage against Travis Kelce. So if you put someone small enough and quick enough to guard normally, who's quick enough to guard Travis Kelce on Travis Kelce, then he uses his body to defend them or they run at you. You can't do any of those things with Derwin James. Derwin James is so special because of that. And so you have this guy in there who's big enough and physical enough to play against the run and to play aggressively against tight ends in pass coverage. So you know what? Let's spread him out and throw the ball. He's completely comfortable in man coverage in a slot against a receiver. So like that defensive versatility is not as fun as talking about all the other fun stuff. But that, I think, is what makes them a legitimate contender this year and for years to come. But Derwin James gets hurt a lot, unfortunately.
But, Dom, I think in addition to that, the biggest question for the Chargers defense wasn't that element. It was their run stopping. And up to this point, I think the first 3 weeks of the season, they had allowed a rusher in each of their first 3 games, 70-plus yards. They could not stop the run early on, and this time they could. Now, James was coming in hobbled. We don't exactly know whether the Raiders were putting forth their best effort in the ground game because of injuries and otherwise. But that was a huge element for the Chargers to be able to figure out how to be comprehensively a great defensive team. And with that element added to what we're seeing from Justin Herbert and the offense, is particularly you try to shut down their 2 tremendous wide receivers, and look who stepped up. They're 2 tremendous looking now tight ends. So this is a team that has so many more weapons maybe, and with that defensive element where they can now, at least in this game, stop the run, that's going to help them a ton. I don't think you could say the Raiders aren't the story at all, though, because I think we do get a little prisoner of the moment on whatever sexy team is looking good at the moment. And, of course, the Chargers are looking real sexy after beating the Chiefs and the undefeated Raiders. But the Raiders had injuries. The Raiders' offensive line remains a problem. The Raiders could not get enough pressure on Herbert to not allow him to dice up the secondary, and they themselves couldn't establish enough of a run game to be multifaceted enough to keep them guessing. But they had a comeback that, if they hadn't flailed so much in the first half, might have been completed again. That was the Raiders' MO this season: get behind 2 touchdowns, come back and win. Unfortunately for them, they got behind 3 touchdowns, and they weren't able to pull it off. But I do think the Raiders and their deficiencies need to be mentioned here, because I need to see this against another team that doesn't look so hobbled.
Go ahead, Pablo.
No. I was just going to say, I just think it's amazing that we're already normalized to the fact that the Chargers are no longer congenital chokers. Like the
Yes.
idea that after the game, even like we're marveling, like, yeah, we expect Brandon Staley and his team and Justin Herbert to do this now. I mean, we had once categorized we once categorized like the Chargers as Falcons-esque, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
The Chargers lost 7 games by 1 score last season. This season, they look like they bridged that gap is what's happened. And Brandon
They
Staley,
can finish.
man, like they can finish allegedly. But look, what Brandon Staley
Wait a minute,
seems
that
to
was
be
not.
doing,
Nope, don't be weird.
Nope.
That was
nope.
not
I
another Meyer
didn't-
joke.
Brandon Staley.
What was that?
Brandon
Nothing
Staley.
alleged
He had
about.
moved
I'm
on to
talking about
Brandon
Brandon
Staley. What are you
Staley.
doing,
Finishing
Sarah?
games.
What are you allegedly
Sarah.
doing?
Finishing
Sarah,
games.
allegedly stop it, Sarah. It's out of control.
Yes, I allegedly have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But the idea that Brandon Staley now is this guy who seems like, I know he's from Fangio's tree, but then McVay brought him over, and now he's like a guy who everybody sees as like, oh, this is the smart young coach that we should be really impressed by. It feels like that is a rightful position for that guy to hold.
Maybe so, and I like that we're giving that position to defensive coaches also, but you know what normally comes along with smart young coaches is a really good quarterback. Like people talk about Cliff Kingsbury like he's the second coming. Nah, Kyler is dope. But I think the big story coming out of this game that we didn't touch on, aside from the boring stuff like offensive line stuff, Rashawn Slater is awesome. That's impressive. All those numbers are nice. They're impressive. You know what the big story is? Back to Brandon Staley. He's going for it on 4th down and short multiple times in the second half of a game.
At midfield.
Yeah, and not great field position while they're getting come back on. Like that's the type of progressive stuff that I think Brandon Staley deserves credit for. He's like, you know what? We're really good at offense. Getting 2 yards, getting 3 yards, getting 4 yards. It's something that we are capable of doing. We feel more comfortable and confident in doing that in this situation than we do punting the ball back to you. Like not only does that, well, I was going to say it makes the game more exciting because punts aren't always that exciting, but then we had Hunter Renfrow coming down and lighting up gunners, making punts exciting again. That was outstanding. But I think the question, what? You didn't like that one?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.